might sound really weird to you, but sometimes I'm attracted to feeling emotion, even if it's a negative emotion. And there's a dangerous line that I walk when I kind of push myself towards thinking in more negative ways when I'm contemplating something and I am feeling things, and sometimes it can like push me into a weird mental state, and it's just probably not the best that I do that. Um but reading this book that I'm reading right now for school in my resilience class, I feel like it's one of those situations where I'm getting really close to that don't do side. Like, there's been multiple times where the way that the author writes the memoir is just so deep and profound, and I'm like, I connect to it in my own ways, and I just have to stop because it's just too much for me to take at one time. I don't know if you guys have heard about this book before, but it's called Know My Name by Chanel Miller. I'm not gonna go super deep into it because that's not what I'm really making this video about, but basically she was sexually assaulted at Stanford, and the whole story is about her trauma, her mental health related to this, and she tried to go to court to try to have the guy be held responsible for his actions. And I'm not super far. I would say I'm kind of nearing halfway, but there have been multiple times, like I said, where I just had to stop reading because I was like, dang, that kind of hurts. And I think that even though there's been times where it's been hard for me to read it, I'm gonna finish it partly because it's for school, but also because I've already started. I want to see this through, and I just think that I'll be able to make it without having any sort of long-lasting mental health problems. For me, it's just been like a few hours of me just contemplating things a little bit too much after I stop. But I'm gonna go over this one part that I had just read that kind of really resonated with me. And even though I did not have the same situation as her, by any means I did not have the same kind of trauma, um there are things that she says that I can relate to, especially when after a manic episode I get thrown into depression. And yeah, so I'm just gonna get into the little part that I was talking about. So here's the book. So this is basically around the time when uh the trial was coming up, and she was getting really hopeless almost. And she was talking about how she would take runs at night to try to clear her mind and stuff. And she would get to the place where in high school a lot of kids would commit suicide by jumping in front of a train. And so many kids did that, it became an epidemic almost in their town. And uh, they had to have a guard stationed there to try to prevent people from committing suicide by throwing themselves in front of a train. So anyway, she would run there and stay on the side, and just like sit there and think about stuff. And she wrote here, I'm just going to read a small paragraph of what she said. There were times now when I felt like crawling into the hole. In bed some nights, I stared up at it hovering above me. Wouldn't it be easier? I took inventory. I was 23, assaulted, unemployed, my only accomplishment being a nameless body in the local paper. When I thought of my future, I saw nothing. I wanted to stop. And I think it was that last sentence that really got to me. I don't want to say that my experience is exactly the same as hers, but I also don't want to like belittle my own experiences with this, because I feel like everyone has their own reasons for not wanting to get out of bed, not wanting to go on. And I think it's serious, and the way that she put it here was really, I don't know, it really got to me. I didn't read like most of it, but there was like a bunch of build up to this point where when I read that, I literally had to close the book. But um there was a summer that I had spent mostly in bed, to be honest. I really didn't get up for anything, and I felt exactly like that. It was when I thought of my future, I saw nothing and I wanted to stop, but honestly, I knew that I couldn't. I think there's always been a part of me that was like, I can't just end here, you know? So, um, but the biggest thing was that when I thought of my future, I wasn't planning for anything, because I was like, there is going to be no future for me. And I would have been content just randomly not waking up for whatever reason. And, I was like, I don't mind that. It just seems too hard to try to do things right in my life or whatever. And um later on this page, actually, when I did start continuing to read it, the next paragraph at the end, it says, I would always get up, turn around, and jog home because it was the only thing I knew how to do. So that also almost goes along the lines of what I went through. I feel like throughout that whole summer, there was never a time where I was just like, I'm done, I'm not doing this anymore. It was always like, well, I'm not doing anything for myself right now, and I wish this was gone, but it's not, and I'm tired of trying. But, like, I kept going with it, and I did eventually get out of it. And, like, honestly, since then I've come really far. And it's kind of mind blowing to think about how there was a time when I saw nothing for myself, and I really didn't care either. Like, I was completely fine with just staying where I was, and I can't say completely fine. It was more like I had just been accepting of the fact that that's the way it is right now, and I didn't care to try to help myself, which is not the greatest. But I'm glad that I didn't like give up. And I think that going through everything that anybody has ever gone through, especially when you're just in that low point, when you're not thinking super clearly, you're not like seeing what the future can become, and you always just got to keep moving forward and, you know, experience what there is left to experience. Because, I mean, everyone has their expiration date, and I don't know if you believe this, I don't even know if I believe this, but you don't necessarily get to decide exactly when you die. Like, there are so many people who try to end their lives that just, you know, fail at that. I don't want to say fail, but like, you know, they end up not being able to commit suicide for whatever reason, because someone found them and brought them to the hospital quick enough or whatever. And I've heard stories of people, trying 3 times, and finally by the end of that, they were like, it was just not meant to be. Like, I'm supposed to live longer than this. And it's confusing when I say that because there are those other people that do go through with it and commit suicide, and it's just like, by the same theory would you say that that was their expiration date, sort of thing. I don't really know what the answer is, but I think that to an extent there's always more that life has to offer us, even up to the very last moment. I know that this has kind of been a different video, kind of took a downturn, I guess, like into that serious stuff, but I guess that's just what this book does to me. Like, I start thinking a bit much about everything, and I wanted to bring up specifically that part because it just hit me really hard, and I think that everyone has parts of their lives where they're like, what am I even doing right now? What am I even going on for? This seems pointless. And then it kind of orients towards change and growing and progressing. So, in the end, it's not always a bad thing that these things happen, but it doesn't feel very good in the moment. So, yep, that is my little video for today. I hope you guys liked it, and I will see you guys next week.